Vlogmas Day 17! Morning folks, today I thought we would chat a little bit about how we've been managing mud fever on the yard this winter. So mud fever is a kind of sort of a term used for a dermatitis, generally on the limbs. It can be on the underbelly, and the same kind of irritation can happen on their backs and other parts of their body as well. It would be called maybe something different, maybe rain scald, something like that. But what we want to talk about today is the mud fever. Now, mud fever is caused by a sort of bacteria that's found in the soil, and in wet and muddy conditions, it really escalates. It seems to be that there are certain horses that are more susceptible to it than others, particularly horses with white legs. They're just a little bit more sensitive to it, and we need to be really, really vigilant to make sure we catch it in the early stages. Mud fever can escalate really quickly, and if you're at all concerned or your horse seems to be in any sort of amount of pain or whatever, then definitely call the vet. They may need antibiotics or anti-inflammatories to help them with that. Some also need to be have the scabs removed under sedation, so never hesitate to call the vet with something like this. What I want to talk to you about today really is then how we go about preventing it in the first place, and that initial outbreak. What can we do to sort of stop it in its tracks, so it stops getting to the stage where it does need veterinary intervention. In the past, I've always been one to hose down horses' legs as they come in, and the theory is that you should always be really vigilant about drying the legs afterwards. And I guess that probably hasn't always happened in the past. This year I've gone a completely different route. I have not been hosing the legs when they come in from the yard at all. I've been allowing the mud to dry and then brushing it off, whether it's later on in the day or if it's in the morning. And I must say, although it might not look pretty when they're standing in their box covered in mud, we have not had nearly the same issues with mud fever this year. It could be due to other factors that I'm not aware of. However, certainly this approach seems to have been working for us this year. Another thing I'm doing differently this year is all my horses were always booted up to go out, to be turned out. I do still have a couple that go out with overreach boots because they are awful at pulling shoes, so that helps with that. But I used to I used to boot up their cannon bones and things as well, just to avoid injury. I had a nasty injury years ago on a horse who'd eventually broken their leg, so I do anything I possibly can to avoid those kind of incidents. This year, however, I've taken the view that these organisms grow in moist conditions, and if it's warm, even better. So you can imagine under a boot, a neoprene boot, for example, think how moist and perfect that is for these bacteria to grow and to really get involved in your horse's skin. So I have been really brave, and I have not booted my horses up this year. And again, we've really noticed a difference in terms of these kind of irritations on the skin. What I will say is, if you are booting your horses up, and I know plenty of people do, and I totally understand the reasons for it, is when you bring them in from a day in the field in mud and wet, the best one in the world, those boots are not going to dry overnight unless you've got particular boots that are designed to do that. If you put on wet and often cold boots in the morning, that is it's escalating the problem. So you'd be better putting nothing on unless you can put on a dry, clean boot. So definitely recommend that you, when you're washing the boots as well, try not to use irritants. So, heavily perfumed washing powder that we use on our own clothes to make them smell nice, not necessary for horses, and in fact can actually be an irritant. So a fragrance-free soap to use, or a powder to use in your washing machine, and they don't need fabric softeners and things like that. Just make sure that they're clean. That's the most important thing. I've got an antibacterial detergent for all the horsey stuff, which is great. So anything like that, any sort of fungal infection or bacteria will be killed off, or 99% of them will be killed off in the wash. So I have one horse, Bobby. He is, every year he will come in with some sort of mud fever. It's never been horrendous, but in the past I have gone to the vets and got Tetradelta, which is a topical antibiotic. I think it's used for mastitis in cows, actually. Mistake me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, and you put that in baby oil and you use it. I think you can use it certainly as a barrier to prevent it, but it's also obviously as a topical antibiotic, it will treat the infection as well. I have used a bit of that this year. I was really getting nowhere. It's very, very mild, but I couldn't sort of stop the cycle of infection. So I spoke to the lovely Marta at Eqclusive. I noticed that she had been promoting a mud fever sort of system to prevent it and to sort of treat it at the early stages. And she sent me some, and it is absolutely super. So it's done by you and your horse. You can buy it from Eqclusive. I don't know if you can see. There we go. It comes in 2 parts. So you've got your shampoo. That's a tea tree based shampoo. So that is a natural antibacterial agent. And the system is that when you've got an infection, to give them a good wash with this in nice warm water. They also provide you with a lovely pink Has brush. It's a plastic-based one, so it's a good water brush. And to use that with warm water to soften the scabs and lift them off. Obviously, the tea tree in the shampoo also helps to tackle the bacterial infection. You then thoroughly dry the legs to make sure that there's no dampness left on them. And when they are dry, you apply a little bit of this cream. Now, this cream has got nano silver in it, which is the antibacterial agent. It's a nice, really thick cream. I don't know if you can see. You do not need a lot. It goes a long way. And you put it on the areas that are affected. So it's a nice kind of, it's almost like, it's thicker than Vaseline, but it's that kind of consistency. I've been putting it on a sort of circular motion, and that lifts any scabs that have been left on as well. And literally overnight on Bobby, it was gone. Absolutely. Which it's amazing. So it made a big difference to certainly the feel and for him, I guess, the comfort in his legs. However, mud fever is something that, or the bacteria can sit in dormant in skin for months and even up to years until the conditions are right for it to kind of explode again. So it's definitely something that I've got on the yard and I can use if it reappears. But for me, I think the preventative measures of making sure it stays clean and dry. So even that, if they're out in the field and it's wet, I make sure that his legs are left to dry and the mud is brushed off. It also means in the stable, so you can't have a wet, dirty bed and expect the bacteria not to spread. So make sure their beds are really, really clean and dry. Any boots and bandages and things that you're using on the horses, make sure that they are washed in an antibacterial detergent. And just be sensible, really. If it gets to the point where you can't control it with good management and your sort of general creams that you can buy yourself, please call the vet, because it can escalate so quickly, and it does sometimes need veterinary intervention. Hope this has helped. Let me know your stories. I know there are lots of other ways to manage and treat mud fever, so let me know how you manage it, and I'll see you all soon.